The fog rolled over the marsh like a living thing, thick and silver under the pale moon. The town of Black Hollow slept uneasily on its edge, a place of crooked houses and shuttered windows, where even dogs refused to bark at night. They all knew the story, passed down like a warning etched into bone. The Lantern Man, a figure that wandered the swamps with a single glowing light, luring travelers deeper until the earth swallowed them whole. Some swore he was a ferryman from centuries past, who betrayed those who trusted him. Others said he was never human at all, just the marsh given shape and hunger. But in the modern world, legends were little more than content. That was why 5 friends, Ethan, Rachel, Marcus, Lily, and Jordan, had come. With cameras, drones, they never asked themselves if the risk had a name. The van rattled as Ethan steered it down the narrow road. On either side, water glistened between reeds, stretching into fog. Their headlights caught the pale reflection of broken signs. Danger, no trespassing. Marcus leaned forward from the back seat, his camera rolling. And here we are, folks. Midnight in Black Hollow, chasing down a Lantern Man. If he shows up, we'll get the first real footage ever. Rachel smirked, but kept her arms crossed. Or we'll just waste gas filming mist. Lily's eyes lingered on the darkness outside the windows. It doesn't look like mist to me. It looks thick, like it wants to stay. Jordan chuckled nervously, adjusting the drone controller in his lap. Come on, Lily. Fog isn't alive. The van jolted. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. Everyone fell silent. Ethan turned the key. Nothing. Just a low hum, like air trapped in water. Marcus kept filming. Oh, that's perfect. But then they all heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Circling the van in the fog. Rachel pressed her face to the glass. Do you see that? Over there? A light flickered between the reeds. Not the harsh white of headlights or flashlights, but a dim yellow glow. It swayed as though carried by a hand, bobbing closer, closer, then vanishing into mist. Jordan swallowed hard. That's not funny. Who brought another light? No one answered. Ethan tried the key again. The engine roared back to life suddenly, headlights blazing through the fog. The road ahead was clear, empty, but behind them, in the rearview mirror, the lantern burned. They made it another mile before the road dissolved into dirt and puddles. The fog thickened until the world felt reduced to the hood of the van and the faint suggestion of trees clawing at the sky. The engine ran, but the tires spun in a slick of mud. End of the line, Ethan said, forcing a brave grin. We hoof it from here. They shouldered gear, cameras, batteries, a boom mic, Jordan's drone case, a pair of high-powered flashlights. The marsh greeted them with a low, constant chorus. Frogs, some insect that hummed like electricity, water gulping at the edges as if swallowing. They moved down what had once been a path, rotted planks peeking through moss, half-sunk posts where a fence had tried and failed to tame the water. Marcus filmed everything. "We'll cut this with urban legends and maps in post," he said. More to calm himself. Lily rolled her eyes, but she slipped the recorder from her jacket. "If anyone is out here with us, please don't answer," she said under her breath, and clicked it on. The path wandered. At some point, they passed a sign fallen into reeds. The wood swollen, the letters blistered, but still readable. "Fairy Walk." Beneath it, a hand-painted warning in a shakier script. "Do not follow the lights." They did not mention the sign aloud. The first building came out of the fog all at once. The way ships must appear to sailors on bad nights. A squat thing leaning on cinder blocks, boards nailed across the windows with an almost loving care, as if someone had tried to tuck the house into itself. A fisherman's cabin inside smelled of wet wood and something else, an old iron tang like dried blood. The living room held a table, a chair, a stove, so ancient it belonged in a museum. On the table lay an oilcloth satchel tied shut with twine. Rachel, careful as if she were diffusing something, untied it. "Journals," she said, "a lot of them." They were handmade, cardboard covers, pages stitched in with fishing line. The first page of the topmost journal had a name scrawled in charcoal: Hiram Page. Every subsequent page was crammed with writing that leaned forward, as if hurrying toward a conclusion. Some pages held drawings, boats and men with braces on their legs, a river map with dots like constellations. Silence, the kind that had weight. Marcus panned across the drawings. "We'll get a voiceover in post. Talk about folklore evolving from crime to ghost story." He paused at a sketch of a child's hand in a larger hand, the lantern's glow painted in with some yellow paste. "This is intense." Ethan flipped deeper into the journal. The writing changed. Shorter sentences, words repeated. Lantern, lantern, lantern. Under one entry, a damp stain had warped the paper. Jordan set the drone case on the floor and knelt to assemble it. "If we get the drone up above the fog layer, we can map a path out. I can drop breadcrumbs on GPS." "Do it," Ethan said. Jordan stepped out onto the porch to launch. The others remained bent over the journals, the recorder's tiny red light a heartbeat on the table. The drone's rotors whined to life. "Lifted, seeing just fog," he said. "Hold on. There's water everywhere, but I can see a line of trees. North, maybe a levee. If we—" The figure did not answer. He tilted the lantern slightly. Its light stretched toward them like a shore washing in. Lily gripped Ethan's sleeve. "Back inside," she whispered. "Please." They retreated. The figure did not approach. The lantern bobbed once, twice, then slid sideways into the fog and was gone, like something slipping beneath dark water. They didn't breathe until the light vanished. Jordan laughed, the sound breaking at the edges. Okay, that's a guy. A sick guy doing a bit. We'll avoid him and keep moving. Your drone, Rachel said. He looked back at the screen. The drone still climbed. The map showed the vanishing footprint of their path. Seeing? Just fog, he said. Hold on. There's water everywhere. But I can see a line of trees. North, maybe a levee. If we... His voice leveled off. Ethan waited for the rest. Jordan? Rachel called. The drone's whine continued, rising toward a faint, star-pricked sky above the fog. Jordan stood at the edge of the porch, frozen, the controller limp in his hands. The fog had thinned just enough to show a pale seam of path and the suggestion of a person standing on it, 30 feet away. Lantern glowing low like an ember. Do you see that? Jordan whispered. They joined him. The figure was tall, or the fog made him so, his hat a brim of shadow, his clothes sagging with water. He held the lantern at his side, and the yellow within it wasn't flame. It moved like trapped minnows. Sir? Ethan called, keeping his voice. Jordan worked the controls. The drone responded with a 3-note chime. Descending. They watched the tiny triangle sink on the display. It should have come down straight overhead. Instead, the camera spun, the horizon tipping slowly, a smear of light at the corner, like a lantern seen through rain. For a breath, a face filled the frame. Pale, swollen, eyes washed out, a mouth slack, as if water had taught it to hang open. Then black. Signal lost. Jordan lowered the controller, as if it weighed 100 pounds. It dropped, he said. I watched it drop. Marcus pushed a hand through his hair. We get the footage off the SD if we find it. We're not going to find it, Lily said, eyes on the doorway, where the fog pressed like a curious animal. Then we move, Ethan said, choosing a leader's voice, because someone had to. We head for the town, find a place with lights, charge, regroup. They shouldered gear again. Rachel took one last journal, the one with the child's hand drawn in. Evidence, she said, stuffing it into her backpack. If nothing else, it's a story. They stepped off the porch. The fog closed behind them with a sound like pages turning. They hadn't gone 50 yards when Lily stopped dead. The path ahead divided. A Y made by 2 strips of rotting boards, vanishing into gray. The ambiguity of choice. But that wasn't why she froze. She was listening. Do you hear my name? She whispered. Ethan listened. He heard water. He heard their breathing. Then, yes. Somewhere to the left, a voice like a lover, trying not to wake the house. Lily. It wasn't a question. It was a memory replayed. Don't, Rachel said. But Lily had already turned toward it, a fraction. As Lily squeezed the recorder in her pocket. I won't. I promise. But the voice came again, a little farther, like someone taking 2 steps ahead and asking you to keep up. Lily, she took one step, then another. Lily, Ethan said, not unkindly. Stay with us. She turned back to look at him. I hear my mother, she said softly. From when I was little, she used to sing to me when I had night terrors. It's that. I know it is. Her foot found the left-hand path. The fog shifted, like a curtain closing, swallowing her from the knees down. Ethan lunged and caught her wrist. Cold slid up his arm, so fast he cried out. It felt like he had plunged his hand into a chest full of river ice. The fog rippled, and within it something moved. Shapes, many of them, at odd angles, like eels in a bucket. Let go, Lily said, calm as sleep. It's okay. He did not. Rachel, help. Rachel grabbed Lily's other arm. Marcus hooked his fingers in Lily's jacket at the back. Together, they hauled. The fog resisted like glue. For a moment, the world narrowed to the white roar of breath in their ears and the soft plop, plop of water somewhere just out of sight. A lantern burned to their left, nearer now. Its light ate color from everything. Lily's pupils widened until her eyes were mostly black. Lily, Ethan shouted, and angered something by using her name. The fog surged, the lantern bobbed, and the three of them tumbled backward into the reeds. The path was empty. Lily was gone. The recorder in her pocket clicked once, twice. A sound like a heartbeat heard through walls. We go to town, he said, because the town had become a talisman. We get help. We come back with people. They did not say what they all felt in their bones. The marsh would not keep the shape of the path for them. By morning, the place Lily stood would be somewhere else. It already was. They chose the right-hand path. They didn't look back. Black Hollow did not announce itself so much as allow itself to be found. The path spit them onto a road that might have been paved once. Houses crouched along it, with their shoulders hunched, porches sagging, windows either boarded or unlit. A single streetlight buzzed at the corner, haloed by gnats. Civilization, Marcus said, breath fogging, camera muttering its little mechanical sounds. He laughed in relief that sounded like sobbing. If anyone's awake, we're saved. They tried doors, locked. Curtains twitched, then stilled. The streetlight's hum grew louder, then fell to a thin whine like a kettle about to scream. Ethan lifted his hands, calling, "We need help, our friend." But his voice seemed to deaden, like snow absorbing sound. A bell rang, not church. Something smaller. A shop door opened half a block down, its bell jangling twice. Light spilled onto the sidewalk, warm and yellow, the kind that suggested cinnamon and old paper. A shape stood within it, a woman in a knitted cardigan, the color of tea. Gray hair braided and looped on her head. "You'll come in now," she said. It was not a suggestion. They went. Inside smelled of clove and lemon oil. It was a general store that had stopped acquiring general things some time ago. Shelves of canned goods with labels faded to pastel, a display of moth-eaten hats, a glass case of pocket knives too small for real use. Behind the counter, a stove ticked as it shed heat. The woman set out 3 mugs and poured tea from a dented kettle. "You'll drink," she said. "You'll shake for a bit, because he learns them," the woman said. "Same as he learns the shape of your fear." Ethan wrapped his hands around the mug, because she told him to, and because the heat felt like salvation. "You know what's in the marsh." "I know what it was," she said, and for the first time her mouth softened, grief flattening the lines of her face. "I knew the man before the thing wearing him." Marcus leaned forward. "The ferryman." "That's the story you heard," she said. "Bits true, bits turned wrong." In 1870, Black Hollow was a stopover between real places. There was a ferryman. Hiram Page was his name, the same name you found in those books if you were foolish enough to go in a cabin. Rachel blinked. "How did you—" "You've got his paper dust on your sleeve, dear," the woman said gently. "Hiram ferried families, men with dogs, salesmen with cases, the occasional heartbreak running from where it was born. The marsh takes tolls. Mud, time, sometimes worse. Hiram took coin. He was a fair man, until the year the water rose and didn't go back." She spoke slowly, as if translating from a language she hadn't used in years. "The river misremembered its banks," she said. "Whole fields drowned. Hiram's son, Matthew, went with it. His wife was found 2 days later with her hair tangled in the cypress roots like the marsh had combed her. After that, Hiram rowed passengers across with his eyes shut tight. When they asked why, he told them the lights lied. Jordan's fingers, empty without the drone controller, picked at a nick in the counter's varnish. The lights. Lanterns that aren't lanterns, she said. Sometimes they look like fire in a bottle. Sometimes like a boat waving you home. People follow. The marsh rearranges itself to make sure you can't shame it by walking back. Marcus swallowed. Hiram turned into him, didn't he? The lantern man. The woman's eyes flashed. No, child. That's the part men tell, so they don't have to admit anything gets bigger than us. Hiram didn't become it. He fed it. By accident at first. After, not so much. She poured more tea. The bell over the door gave a single delicate chime, though no one came in. The winter after his family died, Hiram began to leave a light on the far bank for travelers, she said. A little kindness. It worked for 3 men and failed for a 4th. He found the body 2 days later and swore his lamp hadn't moved, though the man's wife swore she'd seen it cross the water and bob into the trees. Rachel whispered, "He stayed anyway. He stayed until he couldn't tell if his hands were on the oars or the marsh's hands were on his," the woman said. "There are pages in his journals you should not read if you want to sleep again. He wrote that the marsh has a mouth. He wrote that the mouth opens every 50 years, because that's how often men forget not to feed it. He wrote that it asks for 5. Ethan squeezed his mug until the porcelain creaked. "We're 5. Were," the woman said softly. "Don't say her name. Not in here." Rachel claimed the edge of the counter with white-knuckled fingers. "How do we get her back?" "You don't," the woman said, not cruelly. "You survive and make less of it to feed on. There are rules. If you hear your name, don't answer. If you see light, don't follow. If you must go where the water speaks, go backward. Walk as if you are returning, and the marsh will confuse itself. Before midnight, the lights will try to separate you. After midnight, it won't need to try. If you are still in the marsh when the bell in our church is supposed to ring, the bell will not sound. And you will not come out the way you are now." Jordan's voice broke. "What is it? If not Hiram, if not a ghost?" The woman's gaze slid toward the window where fog pressed like a face. It's hunger given a place. It learned us the way the ravens did. We taught it names by writing them on walls and stones and whispering them to babies. And it learned the trick of calling us with those. Hiram figured that much, then broke a rule and thought he could bargain. He offered himself to it to end it. It took him and stayed. Some part of his lamp remained, tangled up in the thing's mouth. May smiled without much pleasure. "Different weavers. Our family makes nets." "May," Ethan said, stepping closer, voice low, "tell me straight. If we go back before midnight, with rope around our waists, and promise not to answer when we hear a voice that is wearing our mothers, can we pull her out?" May studied him. "If you tie a rope around your waist, it will not be around your waist when you need it. The marsh will have convinced you to take it off for a good reason you will not remember later. If you promise not to answer, something will ask you a question it is not possible not to answer. If you go back together, you might come back alone." He expected a no. Her answer was worse, a truth that had teeth. He set his mug down carefully. "Then we keep moving by your rules and get out." "That is what the living do," May said simply. "But I am old and allowed a cruelty or two. Don't take the journals with you. They want to be near water." Rachel froze halfway to her backpack. Slowly, she pulled the journal free and set it on the counter. May slid it away as if it were a sleeping snake. "I'll keep it where it can't hear the tide." The bell chimed a third time. May's eyes lifted to the door. No one stood there. The light beyond had dimmed, the street light outside, swallowing and vomiting gnats. "You should go," she said. "The bell will not ring at midnight, but the marsh will keep time anyway. Take Abbott Street to the end, then turn your backs to the church and walk. Don't look for the steeple. If you look for it, you won't find it. Look for the smell of motor oil. That will get you to your van. If your van is not there, you will run anyway." Ethan wanted to hug her. Instead, he nodded. May's mouth softened again. "I lost a person once," she said, folding the words in with the softness like cloth. "More than one. if you count the parts of me that went with them. Don't give it what it wants for free. Sometimes, that's the only victory we can manage. They stepped back into the night. The shop bell chimed one last time, and the door shut, its paint cracking along the edge like a mouth closing on a secret. They did not say Lily's name. They did not look for the steeple. They turned their backs to where it might have been and walked, following the faint sharpness of motor oil that May had promised the wind would carry. The road fell away beneath their feet and became something less certain. The fog collected on their shoulders and hair and eyelashes until the world felt made of damp wool. At the corner of Abbott Street, the gnats were gone. In their place, the air held a sweetness like rotting pears. The smell belonged to the marsh. It had simply put on different clothes to meet them in town. "Don't talk," Rachel whispered, and they didn't. The smell of oil grew stronger, then weaker, then stronger, like a heartbeat in a chest trying to decide if it would keep going. The road underfoot sloped, and a ditch opened to their right. The first reeds grew there, slim and hopeful. The town had already ended. The marsh had already begun again. They were back. The path accepted them in silence. The fog thinned just enough to suggest distance and refilled it whenever they looked too long. Ethan tried to walk backward, as May had said, but the human body is an animal hungry to look where it's going. He compromised. 3 steps forward, 2 steps glancing back, listening for the changes in the sound of water, the way a blind person listens for a curb. Marcus filmed less now. He had to save battery. The camera hung against his chest, heavy as worry. Jordan held nothing and hated it. At some point, the fog parted like a stage curtain, failing to meet in the middle, and the marsh displayed something it had built for them. A circle of lights, each the size of a fist, hovering a foot off the ground. They were arranged with the kind of care. Rachel stopped. "No. What if it's town?" Jordan whispered, and they all heard how pathetic the lie sounded. They kept to the boards. The circle of lights slid along parallel, keeping pace as if considering them. Twice the nearest light lunged toward the path, like a fish testing the surface. Twice it recoiled, as if burned by the wet wood. "Backwards," Ethan murmured. "Just a little. Make it lose its place." They edged backward for 10 paces, eyes half shut, so they wouldn't try to fix the fog into a map. When they opened them again, the circle of lights had drifted to the far side of the cypress, confused, or pretending to be. A sound tugged at the corner of the world, the clink of glass against glass. A lantern handle tapped gently by a finger. "Don't say anything," Rachel breathed. "Sssss." They didn't. The marsh did. Ahead, the path ended at a small dock, no wider than a door. where a skiff rocked without moving the water around it. Ethan couldn't make himself see how the boat was tied. The rope simply vanished where it touched the piling, as if the wood had decided to swallow it. He should have turned them aside, but the dock exerted a barnacle kind of logic. If the marsh offers you a boat, you must have needed to cross something. He tested the plank with his foot. Solid. He put his weight onto it and found it held, though the wood groaned like an old man standing. The skiff looked no more real up close. It smelled of tar and river rot. Inside lay a single oar, its blade chewed by time. Marcus spoke without moving his lips. "If we get in, we die. If we don't," Jordan said, voice gone thin, "we keep walking until dawn, and then die and don't know it." Rachel looked out where the skiff pointed. Fog and 3 darker humps that could be stumps, could be backs of something sleeping. "We stay on the boards," she said. May didn't mention boats. May had mentioned Hiram. Hiram had been boats. The thought came to Ethan like a note slid under a door. Careful of stories. They decide for you, if you give them the chance. He stepped back from the dock. "Boards," he said. "We make our own crossings." The fog seemed to sneer without moving. "1, 2, 3, Jordan whispered. 1, 2, 3. He had reached 70 when the boards ended. They ended not because the last board had rotted away, but because someone had taken a saw and cut them square. Beyond, black water. Somewhere in that water, a fish turned lazily, with a sound like a hand rubbing a wet table. Rachel pressed her mouth into a line. "We jump over water we can't see the bottom of," Marcus said. "No." Jordan stretched his light. The beam touched a stump, then another. If they went stump to stump, they could make it 15 feet to a mud bar where reeds grew. Beyond that, more guesses. A sound under the water, like breath being taken. Ethan made a choice, because choices close doors, and closed doors are better than open ones, in a place that notices. "We go back," he said. "Find another path." They turned. The boards behind them had shifted a degree to the right, as if the marsh had shrugged and reset its shoulders. The skiff had reappeared on this side of the boards and bumped the dock twice in quick succession, as if saying, "Pick me! Pick me!" Behind the skiff, hanging at a height that made no sense, because there was nothing to hang it from, a lantern burned. This close, they could see that it wasn't a lantern in any way that mattered. It had a frame, yes, 3 ribs of iron laced with wire. It had glass in that frame, but the light inside wasn't fire or oil. It was a writhing coil of little white things, too many and too small to resolve, endlessly tangling and untangling like a bag of worms rolled in luminescence. Sometimes the light gathered itself into the shape of a flame to be polite. Mostly, it didn't bother. The lantern breathed. In, the coil tightened. Out, it loosened and tapped against the glass. Ethan's tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. "We don't look, We don't answer. It moved closer, not toward them. Adrift, as if its weight in the fog pulled the world a step, and the world went along. Within it, a darker oval slowly clarified. Not a face. Face was too much a favor, but the arrangement of heaviness that the human brain calls a head. Ethan, it said. The fog turned the name into cotton, but there was no mistaking the voice. His father's. Not as he had last heard it, brittle with whiskey and regret, but earlier, when it could still make a room feel like a place you belonged. Ethan's chest stuttered. It does not know your father, he told himself. It found the sound of him behind the lantern. Something taller than a man stepped until it was almost visible and stopped. The outline remembered a coat. The hat forgot it halfway. The hand holding the lantern was not a hand. It was a meat shape that had studied hands and gotten the number of fingers right, but not their joints. Water slicked off it without actually falling. Marcus, it said, and this time the voice wore his brother's lopsided humor like a stolen shirt. Marcus made a noise that belonged in a church when the wrong thing happens. Don't, Rachel said. Don't answer even inside your head. Jordan backed a step, and his heel found air. He pinwheeled and caught himself against Rachel. The lantern tilted, politely, as if yielding space for his panic. Please, it said then, without names, a single word worn smooth by centuries of mouths. The voice scraped across all of them, tried on cadences, swapped vowels. The second lantern appeared to their left, the third to their right, a fourth behind the first. They did not blink into being. They slid out from behind nothing, as if the marsh were drawing back thin curtains and revealing that the room was larger than you thought. Marcus put his hands over his ears. It didn't help. Light talks with light. Back, Ethan said, voice a splinter. Walk backward. They did. The lanterns adjusted and kept their distance, like herons pacing you along a riverbank. The fourth drifted lower until it hung inches above the boards, then lower still until the boards glistened through it. The light lapped at the wood and left it changed. Where the glow had touched, the grain had swollen, forming little— Not here, Rachel snapped. It'll take your breath and keep it. He nodded, eyes bright with helpless tears. Behind the lanterns, something unfolded to its full height. It was not a man, and it could not stop remembering being one. Its proportions were correct, until they weren't. The hat brim kept slipping off its head and becoming a rim of shadow around nothing. The coat learned to hang and unlearned. It held itself as if it hurt to pretend. You will get tired, it said in a voice foreign to all of them, a voice made of wind through teeth. You will want a place to stop that respects you. I am that place. It held the lantern out as if offering a favor. Within the glass, the small white things writhed faster, excited. Ethan's gorge rose. He recognized what they were at last. Not worms, not minnows, not even things. They were pieces of words, whole little phrases, trying to become themselves, names in particular. Entire scraps of people, not a place, Ethan said, because it felt important that someone deny its premise out loud. A mouth. The fog sighed. The shape cocked its head. It might have smiled if it had owned a mouth then. It did not. But the smile happened to the world anyway, a sudden tilting that made Ethan want to lie down and be kind to himself forever. Back, Rachel said again, and her face saved him. The old scar on her eyebrow, from the time she fell out of a tree, the tooth she never capped, the stubbornness that glowed like heat in wet air. Back. They walked backward, and the marsh grew offended. The boards began to creak, not like wood, but like ribs. The fog tightened, the lanterns brightened. The little mouths on the wood opened and shut faster, as if tasting for them. The tall thing moved without moving, its nearness a fact everyone could feel in their teeth. Jordan's counting returned. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. On 3, the boards ended again, ended the same square cut. In front of them, black water. To their left, cypress. To their right, reed. Behind, lanterns. Above, something that might have been a sky once. Marcus laughed a little, almost kindly. Well, here we are. The tall shape leaned, a gesture of curiosity, like a teacher waiting to see if a student would do the obvious thing. Rachel stepped forward. She did it with the kind of calm that made people obey. She did it like someone offering a dog the back of her hand to sniff. She kept her eyes on Ethan. "Trust me," she said. "And when I say run, you run, and you do not look back, even if you believe I have said your name." "Rachel," he began, and she cut him off with a look the way you cut a thread close to the cloth. She tipped forward into the water. It accepted her, without a splash, as if it had been waiting with cupped hands. It climbed her shins, her thighs, her hips. She did not fight. She did not speak. When it reached her rib cage, she inhaled sharply, and then made her body slack, floating, and with a movement as small as a blink, she rolled onto her back. Her face found air. She was inside the marsh, and somehow still available to them. "Now," she said, voice clean, with certainty. "Run." Ethan ran. He did not think about why, only that Rachel had made space like a door with her body. Jordan ran, legs pumping, some part of him counting even as he forgot numbers. Marcus ran, camera banging against his chest, lens cap slapping like a tongue. They ran not on boards, but on something that pretended to be ground long enough for feet to hurt against it. The lanterns flared furious behind them. The tall thing made a sound like a mast snapping in a wind. The fog tried to claw shut, but they were already inside the claw, and through it. Ethan heard water thrash, then still. He did not look back. They collided with a wall of scent so ordinary it made Ethan laugh in terror. Motor oil and old upholstery and the febrile chemical tang of a fresh air freshener. He hit metal with his knee and swore. His hand found a handle. His van's handle. The door gave. He tumbled into the driver's seat. The keys were in the cup holder, where he didn't remember leaving them. Jordan slid into the passenger seat, chest heaving. Marcus piled into the back, groaning. Ethan turned the key. The engine started. Headlights cut an alley in the fog. They illuminated boards. Real boards this time. Boards with nails rusting in familiar patterns. Ethan slammed the gear shift. The van lurched forward and stopped. Something held it. Not mud. A reluctance in the world. For the first time since they left the shop, Ethan spoke a name. Rachel, he said, and the marsh heard it and smiled with all its places. He put the van in park. He put his hands on the wheel, and the wheel felt like a throat. "Don't," Marcus said softly. "Don't go back out there." Ethan listened to the engine purr, and to a silence between purrs the size of a life. He opened the door. The fog had retreated to the ditch. The road lay in front of them as convincingly as a stage set. 10 feet away, something glittered on the pavement. Rachel's bracelet, cheap silver letters on a chain, the kind you pick up at a pharmacy. Rach spelled in the near dark, the E and L having fallen off years ago. Ethan bent and picked it up. When he straightened, the lantern burned across the road, where there had been nothing a breath before. It hung at head height, its light ate shadow, its glass sweated. Inside, the coil of names writhed and twisted, rearranging themselves into the single arrangement that mattered. Ethan, it sighed, weary and delighted, a patron remembering a favorite bar. "Let's go home." The lantern hovered in the middle of the road, its glow breathing in and out. Ethan froze, clutching Rachel's bracelet in his hand until the metal cut his skin. Behind him, Jordan whispered, "Get in the van. Please, don't listen." But Ethan didn't move. The lantern man stepped out of the fog, tall and soaked, his shape barely tethered to anything human. His hat sagged like wet cloth. His coat clung as though sewn into his skin. He raised the lantern, and the little writhing shapes inside the glass pressed against it like drowning faces. "You have given me 4, the voice said. "One more, and I will let the rest of you go." Jordan's hands trembled. "What does that mean? We're 3 left." The figure tilted its head, water dripping from nothing. "One is already mine," it said, and the fog thickened in the space Rachel had once stood. "Another waits with me. That leaves 2. Too few." Marcus lowered his camera, his face pale. "It wants a sacrifice. That's how this story ends, right? One of us feeds it, the others escape." Ethan shook his head. "It's lying. It doesn't let anyone go." But Jordan's eyes darted between them, his breath sharp and shallow. "We can't all die out here. We can't. Someone has to." "Don't say it," Ethan snapped. Yet Jordan stepped forward, his arms raised as if in surrender. "Take me," he said, his voice cracking. If it means Ethan and Marcus live, then take me. I don't care. The lantern man did not smile, but the fog did. The lantern swung once, twice, like a pendulum, keeping time. Then the light spilled forward, wrapping Jordan in yellow coils. He screamed once, high, terrified, before the sound cut off, like a throat closed underwater. The lantern brightened. Inside, the writhing shapes grew more frantic, more crowded. Ethan shouted, "You promised!" The voice came from everywhere. I promised nothing. A bargain with hunger is never a bargain. Marcus grabbed Ethan by the arm. Run, now. The van lurched forward, no longer held. Ethan stumbled back inside, Marcus slamming the door behind him. The headlights pierced the fog, cutting a path. They drove, but the lantern's glow followed. The road twisted endlessly, the same broken signs and leaning cypress flashing past again and again. The van's engine roared, but the speedometer needle never rose above 30. It was like driving inside a dream that refused to wake. In the rearview mirror, Ethan saw it. The lantern, always the same distance behind, bobbing gently like a fisherman's lure. Marcus muttered to himself in the back seat, camera still rolling. We'll die on tape. That's the ending. Millions of views. Right? Millions? His laugh cracked and died. The fog pressed tighter, until even the windshield seemed to breathe with it. Then, without warning, the van's lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed them whole. The engine sputtered and died. Silence. Ethan's fingers shook on the wheel. He whispered, "Don't move. Don't breathe." And then it was there. The lantern hung outside the driver's window. So close, Ethan could see his reflection warped in the glass. The shapes inside it pressed outward, forming mouths that opened in unison. The voice crawled into the van. "Choose." Ethan shook his head violently. "No, you'll take us all. No." Marcus whispered from the back, his voice hollow. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe it always takes everyone, but it lets one live long enough to tell it. That's how it spreads." Ethan turned. "What are you saying?" Marcus lifted the camera. His face was wet, though he hadn't cried. "I'm saying, run." Before Ethan could stop him, Marcus flung the side door open and leapt into the fog. The lantern swiveled toward him instantly, swallowing him in a surge of yellow light. His scream rose and then was cut short. The camera clattered to the ground, lens cracking, recording nothing but fog. See, the lantern dimmed. Ethan sat frozen, his breath harsh in the silence. Slowly, he reached for the ignition. The engine coughed and started. The headlights returned. The fog thinned. The road stretched ahead, empty at last. Ethan drove. For the first time since entering the marsh, the van moved as it should. Trees gave way to fields, fields to houses, and then, at last, to the highway. He did not stop until dawn smeared the horizon in pale gray. He pulled the van to the side of the road. shaking, gasping, Rachel's bracelet still in his hand. He whispered her name once, just once. The fog beyond the ditch stirred, and in the rearview mirror, faint and patient, a lantern swayed. 2 weeks later, a new video appeared on their channel. None of them uploaded it. The footage began with the van on Marsh Road, headlights dim. Laughter filled the cabin, 5 voices strong. The video ended with static. And then, just before it cut to black, a lantern burned in the distance. The title read, "The Lantern Man."